With Death Stranding 2 on the beach just around the corner and having recently replayed the first game, I want to talk about some things I passed over in the last video, and my findings from the first game. This video will contain spoilers for the first game as well as bring up some things from the Death Stranding 2 trailers, so if you don't want spoilers or want to go in as blind as possible, I don't recommend this video. I would like to note that I have not watched any of the game previews, trailers, or the game premiere after the pre-order trailer came out, as I still want to go in relatively blind. That means if I bring up anything that has already been confirmed or denied and I sound unsure, it's because of that. Now, without further ado, let us begin with gameplay. Gameplay is something I feel like I severely overlooked in the first video, so I would like to do it some justice here. The gameplay is my favorite thing about Death Stranding 1, and it was already done so well, so I'm excited to see how it gets done even better. I believe that the core walking, balancing, and delivering aspects will remain the same. The biggest difference is how outside factors will impact that core loop. With a new map or maps, we have already seen new types of landscapes, which include deserts, jungles, wetlands, and new rocky areas, and possibly more that we have not seen. Each of these new areas could have its own challenges added to gameplay. For example, the desert could contrast with the mountain area from the first game by having it to be where you have to keep yourself and or the packages cool, or the jungle could have small bursts of rain. These different areas will have different difficulties when it comes to traversing them. We've seen a new climbing system and it looks a lot better. We also know we will be getting some form of natural disasters, things like earthquakes, floods, landslides, and heavy storms. This is where new and old tools will come into play. I imagine that most of the utility from the first game will make its way over to the second in one way or another. We have already seen support skeletons and hover carriers, which are already two of the best features from the first game. Now, I'm not exactly sure what this new equipment would be. I can't specifically think of anything new I want, but I'm sure whatever they are will be very useful. One of the main pieces of equipment was the buildable structures, and so far we haven't seen too much of them. This is kind of weird because this online connection through other players' structures and stuff is one of the best features and is what makes this, as Kojima calls, a strand type game. Once again, I imagine we will be getting most of the old ones and some new ones to work with, and I wonder if any of the director's cut stuff will be in here. One thing I do not think we are getting is zip lines. As much as I love them, they did nullify a large chunk of the game once you had them all set up. We also no longer have a cuffling, and instead we have a ring, so we don't have the old way of hooking up to it. That being said, we are getting some sort of monorail thing, but that will probably be like the highway in the first game where it is predetermined and will also most likely be related to the story. Up next are vehicles, and so far we have seen a tall truck and a smaller vehicle that works on land and water. They both look cool and will most definitely have their own use cases, but I'm curious as to why both, or at very least the truck, don't have a roof to protect Sam from timefall. I also wonder if any of the previous vehicles will appear, or if these are the new and improved versions. I also wonder if we will get any more vehicles that we haven't seen, possibly Fragile's bike thing from the first trailer. I don't think we will, as the OG version of Death Stranding only had two vehicles, but they also had their own upgrades and variants, so I imagine that it's the same here. Speaking of upgrades, I also imagine that it'll be the same as the first game. The more places you connect and the more you increase their connection level, the more stuff you unlock and upgrade. Moving on to the Magellan as our home base, I'm very excited to see how it works. We know we're going to have our own private room, a VR training area, a shower, a garage, and fabrication. I can't wait to explore what it has to offer and watch it fill up as we collect people throughout the game. We know it's going to be our main home base, but I'm not entirely sure how it is going to work. I imagine that it drops you off at the start of a map, and once you connect an area to the network, it can come to you. This is what I think makes the most sense, but maybe you have to go back to it, or maybe you can only call it in at a certain time or place, or maybe it's just scripted. Speaking of bases, I do wonder if we are still getting things like distro center private rooms, or if we can go into shelters and other buildings to rest and make equipment. It does look like we will spend some time in some sort of city, so I imagine that the answer is yes. And now onto what is possibly the biggest difference in gameplay: combat. We know there is going to be a much larger focus on combat in this game, and I'm excited for it. Replaying the first game reminded me how clunky the combat could be at times, so I imagine that that has been improved. One of the best improvements that we have already seen is the fact that you can drop your backpack, so you can fight without worrying about your cargo getting damaged, having to balance, or having your cargo scream at you for leaving it 10 feet away. It looks like we're also getting some more weapons and more enemies to deal with. So far, we have seen mules, and I cannot wait to throw their spears back at them. Some sort of military faction that has a lot of equipment and armor, robots, and some new and old BTs. I also assume we will fight Higgs at one or several points, same for Neil, who will function similarly to Cliff. We have also seen vehicle combat, and it looks sick, but unfortunately, I imagine that this is more of a one off story related event. And with all that, I would like to bring up some final gameplay ones. I want the main focus to primarily be on delivery rather than the combat. I still want the combat to be a bit smoother and more dynamic, and for higher difficulties not to just turn enemies into bullet sponges that do a ton of damage to you. I prefer if they get smarter, more dynamic, and there are more enemies, and maybe they can increase their health and damage just a little. Speaking of combat, I need my precious bowler gun back. That thing was my goat in the first game, and I always try to have one on me. Another piece of equipment I would want is to have Buddy Bot from Director's Cut, not just because he was super useful, but also because he was just fun to have around. One other thing is that it looks like we're going to get different variants of Cryptobites, so I wonder if they are going to be area related or have some sort of effects that come with them. We seem to be getting a day-night cycle, and I am so glad, as that is one of the few things that the first game didn't have that I would have really liked, and I wonder how it may affect gameplay and look forward to seeing it. And with that, that is all I have to say about the gameplay. Overall, it looks great, and I cannot wait to experience it. Normally, I would do the story next, but I covered pretty much everything last video, so let's move on to characters. Starting with Fragile, we know that she is going to be playing a bigger part in this game, but I think she's going to be playing a much bigger part than I had originally assumed. In Director's Cut, we learned that her mother was a part of a group trying to stop the Bridge Baby production. We also learned that Higgs was a part of that group for a time and that her mother asked him to look out for Fragile. This puts Fragile and Higgs in a much closer relationship than I previously thought. I imagine that this will be brought up sometime in the game, and I'm interested to see how it turns out. One last thing about Fragile is that her new Cupid has a striking resemblance to the necklace we see on her mother. This leaves me wondering, did Fragile have a hand in the Cupid, or is her mother or Higgs more involved than we think? I also wonder why Fragile is working for some UCA big shot she doesn't seem to know, even though she has a relatively bad track record with stuff like that. Maybe it's because it's a really good opportunity, or it's to continue her father's legacy of rebuilding. Could be a mix of both. We still have to wait and see. Reading the interviews on Lucy gave a ton of information on not just her and what happened, but also Sam, Bridget, and Amelie. It helps set her up for whatever role she plays in too. In one of her logs, she brings up how guilty she feels about leaving behind her other patients to be with Sam, but now with the context of her possibly having an affair with Neil, it hits even harder. Speaking of Neil, I got his motivations wrong last video. I said that the reason I think Neil would come back is to get at Sam for Lucy choosing him, and while that is partially true, there is something I didn't know until replaying the first game. Lucy died due to an overdose because she couldn't handle the connection to the beach she got through Sam's child in her. This led to a voda killing a city and leaving Sam as the only survivor. It mentions how many people blame Sam for this incident, and it makes sense that Neil would hear about that and further blame Sam, causing him to have a cliff type situation. There's even a possibility that Neil found her or was somehow there and also died in that void out. One last super random thing before the end. I had a dream a little while ago about what the map or one of the maps would look like in the game. So here it is. I highly doubt this will be accurate in any way, shape, or form, but we shall see. I'm incredibly excited for this game and cannot wait to play it. Everything looks so good and I'm so happy that it is almost here. I did get the collector's edition, so I may make something showing that off. But if I don't, the next time you or anyone else will see me will be after I finish this game. And if you don't see me again, it means I transcended reality due to how good this game will be. And with that, I'd like to thank you for watching my video. Keep on keeping on.